Slides are coming? Perfect. So welcome everybody. Very happy to have you today and talk about what we got right and wrong about AI and CX in 25. Allow me to quickly introduce our panelists. I will start with Shaima Abid. She's Director, Business Planning and Delivery in US Oncology for AZ. And she will focus about what do customers actually wrong. And she will tell you whether she will focus about what we got right or wrong. Then we have Yazan Iwidat, our next panelist. He's Global Omnichannel Experience Standards Lead at MSD. He will take a different stance and will become the advocate of the sales rep perspective. Curious to hear whether you got it right or wrong, Yazan. Then we have Zayed Yasin. He's the Global Head Healthcare and Life Sciences at Reiter, and he will focus on strategic clarity precedes GenAI value creation. And last but not least, we have Paulo Amaral, who is the go-to-market digital innovation lead at Takeda. And he will focus on smart recycling, so how you can use GenAI for in silico research. Allow me to quickly explain to you what the Fishbowl concept is all about. 4 game rules: speak, don't pitch. We are not a Shark Tank, so don't share your life, don't share your CV. It's not a pitch deck, okay? Keep it simple and short. Very important, keep it grandma-proof, okay? If your grandma get it, we get it, right? So that's the simplicity we're aiming for. If you want to come up on stage, which we invite you to do, this is why it's called a Fishbowl, please build, don't battle. So if you disagree, that's fine, but when you bring a brick, you build, you don't throw it, okay? And the last is, be brief, be bold, be gone. You don't need to sit on stage forever. You can just comment, you can bring your own example, you can build on something which was shared by the panelists, or you bring your own example. Okay, so without further ado, I will ask Shaima. So when you think about CX and AI, you said for you it's very important to understand what customers actually want, right? Mm-hmm. And you have one special task. Maybe you can share with the audience not only your example, but you can also think about what will be inevitable challenges you will face. Because I believe many of us feel guilty when something does not work out. And I believe no one should feel guilty, so maybe you can pay special attention and say, this is something which I expected, but what made the difference is actually how I dealt with this inevitable challenge when thinking about what customers want. Shaima, please.
So when we think about what our customers actually want, right? I think in pharma, I'll say in general, we have a pretty good idea of what they want. They want content or engagement that will help them bring clarity. Clarity in terms of the complex environment that they're navigating in their therapeutic area. They want clarity in terms of how to make the best treatment decision for their patients. They want clarity around how to help their patients navigate getting that treatment, right? I think the challenge arises in how do we provide that to our customers? How do we actually find what their specific or unique needs and challenges are? And this is where I feel that we not got it wrong in 2025, but continue to get it wrong, right? So when we are creating our customer experience or our customer journeys, we still tend to start with our brand strategy. So we tend to start with what do we want our customer to think? How do we want our customer to behave? And if we really do want to be customer-centric, as we aim to do and we claim to do, then we really do need to start putting the customer at the center and learning about, okay, what is it that our customers need? What is it that will help them make the decisions that they want to make? And then tie it to our brand strategy. I'm not saying let's scrap our brand strategy, but it has to be in that order and not the other way around.
So what do you say the first inevitable challenge is that be prepared that people follow the standard process, which is we do what we believe the customers want to know.
Yes, exactly. So that is what I was getting to next. So one of the ways I think AI has presented us with this great opportunity is not just to analyze the massive amounts of data that we have and glean insights from it, but also in terms of content creation, right? So what is inevitable, I think, is that no matter how well we think we know our customers, no matter how good the content is that we think we are providing them with, there will inevitably be customers who that content does not resonate with, whose needs it's not meeting, who we cannot cater to every single customer. I think one thing that we have started getting right is being able to react quickly to that insight. So I think we're showing that, yes, we have empathy, we are understanding what your needs are. Now let's actually provide it as quickly as possible. So one quick use case I'll mention, example. So we all know Gen AI can help us craft content quicker than ever before. At AstraZeneca, we actually have partnered with this external agency in Canada called PAB, and they're the ones we have to get all of our content approved by. So not just getting faster at content creation, but we actually were the first organization to partner with PAB to basically make faster the approval process. So then AI will take a first pass at the content we submit, and it will flag areas where we might be non-compliant. So I'll just end by saying that, AI has provided us with this great opportunity to learn what our customers want and provide it to them as quickly as possible. We just need to start taking it.
Okay. Maybe in the last 60 to 90 seconds before we move on. So I like your twist by saying, let's look at optimistic. Or take an optimistic view, which means we did not fail. What we actually did is we shortened the time to understanding or our ability to learn something faster.
Yep.
So how did you use this positive view and this opportunity to convince your colleagues, leadership, users, customers in the end to say, this is how we finally make sure you get what you want to know. It's not necessarily more, but it's more relevant, coming back to what Dario was saying at the beginning in the opening.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So internally, I think it really helped in terms of adoption, because reps could see that this is actually increasing the speed at which we can get content that is relevant to our customers. I think sales can always have this kind of complaint that, the content that marketing gives us, it's not relevant to us, it's not relevant to our customers. So when they saw that, yes, I am communicating what my needs are, what my customer needs are, and I'm getting the content faster, that drove adoption across sales, across leadership. And the efficiency also helped drive that. In terms of their engagement with their customers started engaging with them more, right? So that kind of helped to build us that trust, that credibility that, hey, we are listening to you. We are trying to respond to your needs as fast as possible.
So it's a little bit also what Uday said. You need to demonstrate the value, not talk about it on slides.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So thanks. What I would like to highlight to the audience is we have more possibilities than ever, whether it's AI, data, technology, you name it. But what does not change is that you really need to understand what your customers want to know, and maybe that's a question you should ask yourself continuously and not only once a year when you start to develop your brand plan. So thanks a lot, Shaima. So Zayan, after the customer understanding or the external customers, there's also a different view, the internal customers, the sales rep. You try to be the advocate of these sales reps. So can you please share an example and your story on how CX and AI, basically where we got it right and wrong? And your special task is to say, what do you think was your responsibility when you started? And what did you actually ended up doing when you started to execute?
Yeah, so I think it's funny that I'm representing the sales reps because I'm always not representing the sales reps. But let me take this role for once. So what I want to focus on is what did we get wrong in terms of CX and AI, specifically for the sales reps. And I think almost everybody in the room knows when we talk about NBX or NBE or NB, whatever you call it, next best experience, next best engagement, next best action. Actually, we see that when we launch a tool like this, we see that the adoption levels of the sales reps is very, very low. And it's not only very low in terms of accepting the suggestions, it's also very low when they're declining the suggestions. They just don't interact with the tool itself. And we figured, because we are designing the tool for the best rep, actually, we are taking the best model rep and we're designing the tool directly for them. But we're not taking the average rep that actually doesn't understand or doesn't really care about the impact to the company. They care about the impact to their workload. And so how we're starting to discuss it with the sales reps is that this tool is not only helping you achieve the company's objectives and the company's results, but it's also helping you remove tasks that you needed to do manually. especially when you're talking about reps that are seeing multiple customer specialties and multi-treaters of different indications. They were spending hours in the morning preparing for their day and preparing which slides from the CLM they need to talk with which doctor and so on and so forth. And we see that the better way of discussing it with the sales rep is that this tool can help you within the CRM, within the iPad that you're using, toggle between things, between doctors, thus reducing time and reducing effort for you specifically, which eventually will help the company achieve its results. So I think my focus, if I would talk in the sales rep's voice, it would be, let's look at our AI tools and AI projects and think about the person that will use them rather than bringing a tool from global digital team and just throwing it in front of a sales rep and saying, like, deal with it. So I think the change of perspective on how we talk about AI is one, and then two, taking the average user rather than designing for the best user that we can get.
Okay. So because it's a fishbowl, and I still would like to know what you thought you need to do and what you ended up doing, let's do the first Slido, please. Can we have the Slido? So answer the question, and we're looking for a brave peer out there who is willing to join and add his or her view on what we heard about, what we got right and wrong about CX and AI in 25 when it's about what do customers want to know, or the internal perspective, or an example you would like to share which is completely different. So don't be afraid. I'm also not afraid to call out names, so you have the chance to join on stage voluntarily. Otherwise, we find someone who is brave enough. So don't be shy. We're looking forward to get your view. Anyone here? So then let me call out someone I know. I see the person in the background, Ovi. So you will be surprised, but maybe you want to join us on stage, yeah? Just to add your view, and while you're coming up on stage, Yazan, so maybe you can just share one or two things you learned where you thought, this is how I need to drive the change. This is how I can explain it to the users. This is how I identify the best users, and what you actually ended up doing. Because I think it's another opportunity to take away the fear from our peers by saying, plan and execution is always different.
Yeah, I think I'll add by saying what I thought my role as a global capabilities lead. So my responsibility was to design the use cases and roll this out in markets. And I think what I thought my role was to interact with a developing agency that was helping us develop the use cases and develop the actual tech, and work with the senior leadership in the market to roll this out to the sales reps. I think what I would change if I would do it again is I would bring the sales rep's voice from the beginning in the use case definition with the vendor. So actually take some of these sales reps that will be the end users of the tool and put them in front of the use case definition, so we can actually bring the adoption directly from the beginning of the project. So that's
great. Yeah. Thanks. Great example. So, Ovi, you are free to choose. What is it that you want to share, and did you get it right or wrong?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Patrick, for the unexpected surprise.
Yes.
Right. So, well, in terms of the customer experience.
Can you just hold up the mic?
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So, I think one of the main challenges, if we want to start with the, let's say, wrong side, it's the fail to put the customer at the center. For us, customer understanding, it's where it all starts. It's always a challenge, and that's what I think we got. We still have some steps to get it right. Let's say it like that. In terms of the good side, we have great access to technology to bypass that. We are in a, let's say, stage in which we can leverage data at scale, very fast, in a compliant way, to get the insights that we need.
Okay. And then just to be as concrete and specific as possible, because I think this is where we can make a difference, Ovi, is, so maybe you can share one learning how you use data and really turn it into insights, stop the confusion and the data swamp and really taking something out of it. So what is maybe a best practice or a learning you can share with the audience?
Mm-hmm. So one concrete example that we did was in terms of tagging or mapping all the conversations, all the interactions, all the data that we gathered. And what we did was to make it accessible and make it understandable at scale very fast. And this was, of course, by leveraging AI models, a very hot topic now. And yeah, this would be a concrete example that we did in the past.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Feel free
Thank you
to
so much.
stay seated or pass on the mic, or someone
I'll
else would
pass
like
the
to
mic.
join.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ovi. So, Zayed, we talked about external customers, understanding them, internal customers, make them part of the solution or co-creation process. There's a question. You can also come up, don't be shy. Yeah, just join us on stage. Perfect. You would like to talk about strategic clarity, because I think understanding customers internally and externally is great. But how can you tell it in a simple way that the rest of the organization understands actually what is it that you want to achieve? So maybe you can start to share your example, or the gentleman tells us quickly whether you would like to add on something which was said, or you can wait for 2 minutes until you... Fantastic. Then Zayed, looking forward. And your special task? Do you have something like a checklist or best practice where you say, I know achieving strategic clarity is difficult, but always thinking about the 3, 4, 5 things. This is what I do, because one of them will help me to come one step closer to the strategic clarity. So if you could weave this into your example, this would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So I work for a generative AI company, but AI is not an end to itself. It is a tool that you use to achieve a different objective. And a lot of what happens in AI offices and technology offices is that, what are we going to do? Generative AI transformation. What does that mean? I have absolutely no idea. Let's do some stuff. Let's make our own GPT. Let's give everyone Copilot. What's that going to do? How are we going to measure it? No idea. I think the best example or the best metaphor that I've heard for that is that, Copilot is the tricycle of AI. It's a great way to learn how to pedal. It's a great way to get a lot of people comfortable with this different technology and non-deterministic models, but you can't win the Tour de France on a tricycle. So if you're trying to do something that is really interesting and transformative, you need to really build a system around that in a way that scales, and you need to know what you're trying to do. So on the other extreme, we're working with a top 5 pharma company with the market access group around using generative AI to support the teams in writing dossiers, global value dossiers, health technology assessment, and there the goal is crystal clear. We want to cut agency spend and cycle time to generate these dossiers by 50% each. So it is very clear at every step, what are we marching towards in a way that is going to fall all the way down to the P&L, in a way that the CFO is going to understand, that the CEO is going to understand. There's no fuzz to it. It doesn't happen immediately, but every step that we take has that in mind. And as we think about both the use case as a whole, to go to your last question, how do you know that something is going to work? Why are 95% of Gen AI pilots or programs failing? You really need to have 4 things aligned in order for a Gen AI system to work. You need to have data readiness, organizational readiness to change. You need to have the technology needs to be ready for it, and then you have to have an actual value opportunity, that if it's successful, there's a way that the changes that will happen will fall down to the P&L or create the outcome that you want. And it's easy to find 2, it's not that bad to find 3, but really to get all 4 aligned is challenging. And a lot of people a lot of organizations have spent a ton of effort on things where one of these is clearly missing and there's not a clear path to it. So there's no real way to succeed. So we have this four-way Venn diagram that every time you're coming into a new use case, or every time you're coming into the next stage of a product, how do we have all four of these really aligned so that it's going to succeed? And if something's not aligned, we're going to work on fixing that before we start building AI systems.
Okay, great. So what I really like is the clarity, cut cycle time by 50%. This is the amount of budget we want to save with clear P&L impact, because I believe if you can say it in one sentence, you have really understood what you want to achieve. And achieving this clarity is extremely difficult. This is why I asked for best practices. You're using a specific type of diagram and your expertise. That's great. So now I would like to hand it over to the gentleman, and feel free to introduce yourself quickly, and maybe we pull up the next Slido in the meantime.
Sure. So I'm Dan. I run an agency called Brandcast Health. I wanted to build on a few things that people have said about customer centricity with AI, and also bringing the team further forward into the process. I think the biggest mistake that I've made within my business, and what I feel I see other people make, is this mandate of AI pilots, bringing people in to run an AI department within the business. Simply because AI exists, we say, okay, now we need to invest heavily in making this a thing in our company, right? We need to take advantage of it. And when we tried to do that on a small scale, obviously, but it's a nice case study, is that you had people running away trying to figure out how to create content quicker, how to get insights better, and then they would come back and present to everyone, and the design team is saying, well, we don't want to do it like that. That doesn't fit our process. And so what we found really worked is, instead of putting people in charge of AI and running AI pilots and projects, actually just give people the tools. You give people access to things, and you say, go about your job, and if you figure something out, you figure a way to do something a bit better, then you tell everyone else. And then everyone else tries it. And if it works, it becomes a process. So my little nugget of advice is, try not to force people to use something in a specific way. Give them the tools, and if it works, it becomes the process, rather than create the process for people to follow. And I think this is the issue that we have with sales reps, MSLs. They don't want to follow a process that's been invented, but give them a tool to help them do their job better. Let them come up with something completely independently and allow them to own that. I think it will work a lot better.
Yeah, thanks. Fully agree. Yeah. Feel free to join. Yeah. There's no need to remain seated. What I like is we talked about the inevitable challenges. There will be things which you cannot plan or anticipate, and being flexible while you execute is definitely important. I also want to motivate myself and the panel, because many people think there are still too much buzzwords, not enough buzz, so let's be even more creative. At least we seem to sound smarter than the models we use, which is already a first success, but I'm pretty sure we can make sure number 2 will become number 1. So,
Yasin. So my first name is Yasin, next to another Yasin, but last name then. So I have a question related to referring to what you said, Yazan, because very often we take our best sales reps, but what we also tend to do is take our best markets. So for example, when it comes to AI models, we take Spain in Europe, because why? Easy access to doctors, high volume of touch points. But how do you apply AI where you have very low volume of touch points? We know, for example, Germany, Netherlands is low volume of touch points, and then even within Germany, Southwest versus Northeast, if you have 2 touch points a year and 3 emails opened, that's already a lot, or the standard. So how do you tackle that?
I'll start, maybe. I think what resonated a lot today is what Uday said at the first panel, is design with scale at mind. So go with your best market. That's okay, but design for the next market that's coming. And I think putting the end user and the environment that they are facing in the Molinex, and thinking with that in mind, you can design for Spain, where they have multiple channels, 10 channels, but for Germany they have 3 channels. And doesn't mean that because they have 3 channels or 7 less channels than Spain, that they can't have the best experience. They can still have the best experience with these 3 channels that they are using. I think starting from there and thinking about extra use cases then would be easier, rather than bringing all of the mix and putting everything and then saying, okay, let's do NBX, for example.
I think it's actually even more important in a Germany type of situation, because in Spain, you've always got another chance to get in front of there. The goal of AI is to automatically create more emails to be deleted without reading, and more pieces of paper for the secretary to throw in the trash. It's to say, all right, for this HCP, what's the problem that I'm trying to sell, and what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, and how can I really add value for them? And customer centricity, I really like the point that you're making at the beginning. Like, what's the HCP's problem? It's not about how do I use Eliquis, it's how do I anticoagulate this patient. So I'm trained as a physician, I've prescribed in the emergency department a lot of Eliquis. I don't think about Pfizer, I don't think of myself as a customer of Pfizer. I don't think that most doctors see themselves as customers of pharmaceutical companies. But if there's a way that you can help me solve my clinical problem, how do I get this patient well anticoagulated, and Eliquis does it better than Xarelto, then I'm willing to listen. But you've got to come at my problem, not yours.
Yeah. And maybe allow me also to add, I believe too often, people think about what is the solution for a small market. And coming back to what's an inevitable challenge, people will think in solutions, not focusing on the challenges or the problems. So your task is potentially not to find a solution, but your task is to manage expectations and find the people to say, how can we make it work? Because if you say, we are interested in a solution which scales across market, it's not your job necessarily alone to say, how can we make it work? Because there are technical ways how you can do it by saying we can fit specific models or curves or algorithms from bigger markets to smaller markets. We don't even need their data necessarily to make it work 80%. But we always focus on how to make it work. So one thing which potentially also is helpful is more on saying, what is it that we want to achieve? Ask the customers, get the clarity, don't forget about the internal users, and then find the right people to tell you how to do it.
If I can ask maybe one more question about the customer voice, because usually when we speak about the customer, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the insights come from KOLs. KOLs are very advanced, very engaged, very specific type of physicians. How do you get insights from real physicians? Not that KOLs are not real physicians, but I hope you know what I mean.
Yeah. So this is the perfect segue. Paulo will answer your question, because actually his example fits perfectly to it, because Paulo, you will talk about smart recycling and how you use Gen AI basically to try to understand how customers would react what you plan to do. So please share your example, and your special question is, can you please also share what your biggest concerns or fears were before you started, and actually how did it turn out in the end? Was it justified, or what is it that you really got out of it? I would be very happy if you can also share how you dealt with these concerns and how you finally made it.
Yeah, so first of all, I think there's no better time to work in pharma than today. With everything that we have now, to get to the point with customers, to understand them, I mean, we have tools that were not available ever, right? I have 30 years working with digital marketing, and I'm still amazed about what we have nowadays. So about a year ago, I was challenged to create a new global campaign for a blockbuster in a company with less money and less time. Sounds familiar?
Yes. Yes.
And what I've done was to, first of all, understand what could I do to succeed, back to your question, in this journey, and what were the tools available to me. You say, oh, this resonates, this doesn't resonate. So I didn't do that. I used the AI as well to then tell me, hey, this visual is better than this one based on the data. Again, you need data, right? Mm-hmm. To analyze, this is better than this one, or this claim will resonate better in this market, so on and so forth. So that process, end-to-end, took me less than 6 months to develop the campaign, launch it, and basically the company saved a lot of money, a lot of time, and the results were amazing. So the results were driving, you know, 2-digit growth for this product.
Thanks for sharing. So instead of bringing AI to your customers, you brought your customers into your AI and basically simulated how they would react. I think that's a very creative way of using AI. Maybe you can just say, what was your biggest concern? Because in the beginning you didn't know, will it work out? What happens if I try something new and then management finds out it was my idea, and so on and so forth. So
Fail, basically, in one word, fail. I didn't know if this thing would work, right? It was risk-taking. I could fail, but with the agreement that if we fail, we learn. And I think sometimes we don't not allow us to have the luxury of failing, right? So this was like, okay, if we fail, then we still have time, you know, because the timeline was shortened. We still have time to go and run a focus group or, you know, go back to market research. So during that process, but I mean, things worked better than anticipated. I think because we had plenty of data.
Okay.
Again, AI is about data and how you want to analyze the data.
And
right?
maybe a creative idea how to use the AI, because I think, again, it's a great example. Before I give it or hand it over to the gentleman, just a yes-no question, Paulo. Did you ask for permission or did you simply do it?
I asked for permission, of course, and I went through a lot of approvals together.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks for sharing this example. The gentleman.
Name's Yuri. Pleasure to meet you all. So I'm from a technology company, but I'm trying to bring this panel to more fair ground because I'm in sales, so I didn't see any salespeople here, and we spoke about this function. And my experience of working with products that are being offloaded to me from some higher up C-level executives, you know, they decided, you know, Salesforce is thing to go, and the process is pre-built. I just hate it sometimes, and I'm not necessarily adopting it out of the box, just because I didn't have a stake in it. And I think when you include low-level to mid-level executives into your process of designing your kind of next-gen platform is very valuable, and it will drive such a huge adoption spike if people have skin in the game, right? And they took part and they have ownership, at least a partial ownership of the innovation that you implement. So this is very important to drive this adoption. And the second thing is very wild for me, especially because I'm from technology, to understand that organizations are building roadmap once a year because we work in sprints that are 2 weeks long, and then after 2 weeks we do retro and what worked and what didn't work. So maybe one of the points is make the innovation more agile and just very short term, so you can do much more innovation cycle throughout your quarter even, and then measure it, rather than just building once every year. And
I mean, I would say we put when we architect things for frontline, we design it so that the local manager has a lot of control. There's no central processor system or technology that'll work for the whole company. So it's really at the very beginning, at the architecture, the design thing, you're understanding how can I make a perfect process? How can I set things up so that the local teams can constantly iterate and have control without having to do long technology cycles?
Thanks. So let me just sum it up, and we can pull up the last Slido to see how AI would feel after the panel. So first, I would like to thank the panelists for being very transparent, open, vulnerable, not afraid to say, potentially, I failed, I learned. But I think we have seen some real-world examples. We'll try to be as concrete as possible. If you have questions, I'm pretty sure the panelists are happy to answer the questions later. And I would like to thank you for your participation and hope you enjoyed the panel.